And we are live from Harebrained Game Studios in beautiful, actually sunny Seattle. I'll call that sun, gentlemen. We're looking out a window here. Yeah, it's filtered sun. Thank you for that. Anyway, this is the BattleTech live stream developer Q&A. I am Mitch Gittleman, your host, and I run HyperRPG and Harebrained Schemes. Sorry, and hi to our friends at NoGutsNoGalaxy. Thanks for hosting us. I have with me today two esteemed guests at your request, and I will allow them to introduce themselves now.
I'm John Everest. I am the composer for BattleTech.
And?
Rob Pearsall. I'm the audio director.
Isn't that good? And Rob and John both worked on Necropolis. John worked on Shadowrun Dragonfall and Shadowrun Hong Kong,
too,
right?
Yep.
So yeah, we have history, as they say in the business. And thank you very much for giving us your questions on BattleTechGame.com. I have collated them and made them very large so that I can read without my glasses. Let's pretend that's that I'm capable of doing that. Before we get started, I'm sure you might have questions about our beta, so I thought I would go right into that right now and tell you. Beta is coming along very well. We have hit the ground really running after sort of our slowdown earlier, like I reported to you, but things have really picked up. Things are going very, very well. I don't have a new beta date to give you yet, but we are narrowing in on it. But what I will say is this. At your request, Mike McCain, game director of BattleTech, and I are sitting down to do a multiplayer game that we will record and put out to you this week. Okay? So there it is. So you'll be able to see gameplay, multiplayer gameplay, in all its glory. And now let the betting commence. Who will win this battle, me or that little bastard? Okay, let's start with y'all. Got plenty of questions, again, from BattleTechGame.com. Here we go. And just in the getting to know you category, yes. You're both musicians. Each of you, who is your favorite band or favorite artist?
It depends on why I'm listening. If I'm just cruising in my car, there's one bit of things. If I'm trying to be inspired about composing for games, I listen to other things.
That's a real non-answer. The witness will answer the question.
I really like the textures and stuff in 9 Inch Nails.
There you go. How about you, Sport?
I'd have to say, if I have to narrow it down to like my favorite band, it'd have to be Radiohead, I would say.
Radiohead, very well. Interesting.
I'm one of those guys.
Interesting choices for both of you. I did not expect you to say 9 Inch Nails.
9 Inch Nails or James Taylor. So
yeah, well, I could totally see those two should actually do it. Like a crossover. That would be great. So the first questions that really jumped out from the forums were about your inspiration and what inspires both of you, right? So John, let's start with you, right? Inspiration for the music of BattleTech. How did you go about getting the feel for BattleTech?
Yeah, well, for me, I think and I think with every project it's kind of similar, the main thing that I kind of key off of is the art. So I really like to get my hands on as much concept art, character art as possible, and then as the game kind of develops and gets further along, then kind of using the story to support the art is then kind of like the final piece of the puzzle. For me, I'm all about kind of creating the backbone that supports the emotional arc of whatever story we're trying to tell. So the art gives me kind of the feel of the music, and then the actual script or broad storyline kind of lets me know if I'm on track.
So a follow-up question that's not on the page, and this is the fun because I get to just throw shit at you. There have been times where we have worked together, let's just say on Shadowrun Dragonfall especially, where we threw you a curveball. It's like, by the way, we've changed the story, in a fairly dramatic way, about, I don't know, a month before finishing the game. Sure. Have we screwed you up that way?
No, I don't think so, because story curveballs are fine once. I think the general underpinning of our stories are kind of cohesive throughout the whole process. You may change how a character interacts in a certain part, or who dies where, or what, but that doesn't really change the feel of the music. And right. When you've kind of created a score that then becomes a part of the universe, you can kind of put things wherever they need to go. You know, this cue might not work here anymore, but hey, it kind of matches this part here. You know, kind of adapts like a evolving breathing thing. It's
that makes sense.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I've seen you do that before. You get these little bits of theme for different characters or different moments, and so where that theme comes in, or when you reprise it, you know, that makes it, they're kind of like Lego blocks of music.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, Rob, back to you now. Go ahead.
And even the smaller bits, you know, you're using particular instruments that might give textures to things, and really, if you can start pulling those things apart, you can change the moods too, right?
Yeah, and the way, especially for BattleTech, since we recorded some of it live, we have, you know, actual isolated performances of soloists or sections, and you can use those in separate places and kind of use them in ways that you didn't think of when you're first writing the music.
Right.
Now, all right, so to you, Rob, there is a long history of BattleTech sound effects, right?
Yeah.
Throughout that. So, you know, and 3025 is a very specific era, you know, when things were really run down, etc. How do you go about starting the sound design for a game like this with such a legacy?
Right, and that was important to me, and I was coming to the table really late. With no experience of BattleTech, that was my first thing to do, was to catch up. And we've got some really knowledgeable people on our team, and I sat them down in this very room here and took a lot of notes. Now, my background is music and recording and sound and everything, but I grew up in an engineering family.
Oh, interesting.
Where my dad's an engineer, my mom's a nurse, and all my uncles were engineers. And they were always talking about how things work. And I loved physics when I was in school. I probably have two equal sides of my brain going. But that was my main questioning, was how does this work? How does the mech do this? What kind of bending, what kind of forces are taking place? And I applied my physics and engineering background to the audio, as well as doing my catch-up with the games. And you sent me a lot of clips on the different games where certain things were brought out. But it was very clear. I'm asking these guys, you know, on our team, what's important? Is it more important for me to get the legacy right or make it cool? Hands down, they said, make it cool.
Right. Well, luckily, the legacy is cool.
Yes.
But what it isn't, I would use the word, is modern. Right. It's not updated.
Right.
You know, in that way.
Right. And that's what we've done, is we've modernized BattleTech.
Yeah.
And I think that's worked well, me coming from a different place. I'm not trying to copy anything, but I am trying to capture all the things in those sounds that have always lived there. A PPC is going to perform like a PPC. My interpretation of it, though, is going to give it that modern thing, because I'm going to come to it fresh. But I'm going to be schooled on, no, that's not right.
Yeah. Oh,
and
I guarantee.
and we'll make it right.
Oh, very soon, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Actually, when we put out this video, you'll
Yes.
probably hear some.
But we're not going to borrow actual sounds from the past. I'm making everything fresh. So.
Yeah, good. And since this is my 6th BattleTech game, I'll tell you, sounds like BattleTech to me. All right, let's keep going. How did each of you end up working with Harebrained Schemes? Or why don't you take this one first? How did we find you in the first place?
I think our producer, Chris
Right.
Klemecki,
Right.
dropped my name. I play in his band. I'm his drummer. That helps to know people. But they brought me over for Necropolis, and while I'm being interviewed, there were things behind the curtain that were shifting, and they said a week later, yeah, we're not ready to do some hiring on this, as it turns out. 6 months later, I get a phone call, and the interview's already done, and they say, now we need you.
No.
And so I show up at Harebrained Schemes.
There we go. Well, luckily, we had you on Necropolis. I thought you did a great job on
Thank
that. And so it makes sense here. And this was a very, very smooth process for us.
Yeah,
What about you,
it's worked
John?
great.
We found you because of college, right?
Yeah, so I went to, had a stint at DigiPen Institute here in Redmond, and I worked on some games with Jen Tran, or Jen Ravenna, who is she
Concept artist for environments.
Yeah, so she was doing concept work for the original Returns, Shadowrun Returns. and I think you guys had already completely finished the game, and you were
Right.
doing a trailer, and she mentioned me.
Right, the trailer. I love that trailer.
Yeah, me too. I really, I actually listened to it the other day, and I was like, damn, this is pretty good.
I love the
No
script
wonder
for
they
that
hired me.
trailer.
Yeah, the script was really good. The voice acting was really good. I can't remember what his name was, but
Yeah, forgive me, I don't either, but I'd like to hire him again.
yeah, he was good.
Good.
Local actor guy.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she just brought me up in a meeting, said, hey, I worked with this guy on a few student games. He seems like he knows what he's doing. And I delivered on time and on budget and got more gigs after that.
That's
Oh,
the
what do
trick.
you know? Yeah, it was, it's nerve-wracking for everybody involved with sound music, in that in game development, what a lot of you don't really realize is that audio is often on the ass end of game development, right? You've designed all this stuff, you've written all this stuff, you've coded all this stuff, you tested it, blah, 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 and then you start getting sound in.
Which is not necessarily the right way to do it.
No, it isn't. And in this case, I think we did better than we've done before. This is probably, from an audio process, one of my best processes that I've been involved in 25, because how passionate I am about sound. Although I don't know anything about it, I just know, seriously, as you know better than anybody, I don't know. But what I do know is how many senses you have to play a game. What do we have? We've got the visuals, and we've got rumble.
Well,
right?
and I appreciate...
If it's it's that. If not, it's screen shake.
You see, but you don't talk technically about sound. You talk about feelings.
It's always
and we
about
love
feelings.
that.
Yeah.
We love...
Yeah.
What does it feel like? That's
Right.
the important part.
Yeah, absolutely. What are we trying to transmit here? And there's mechanics that underlie that help to support it. But anyway, it's a big deal. So this is very pleasant. But audio is often one of the hardest disciplines, because you're coming in so late and so hot often, because people like us have delayed decisions or added new gameplay or whatever, and you're in reactive mode often. And I apologize for that, but at least this time we're doing much better.
BattleTech was they were doing the groundwork for it probably 6 months before we came on, because we were finishing Acropolis.
Right.
But there hadn't really been anything that needed sound.
Right.
So for all practical purposes, we came in at the beginning. That has really been
that's huge.
wonderful to support the team with sound this long.
And you and I have weekly meetings, and we chat all the time. Okay, keep going. Have you guys, either one of you, actually ever played BattleTech?
The tabletop?
Anything.
I think the very first PC game that I played was MechWarrior 2, I believe.
Bravo.
And then I also went to a BattleTech
Center?
The center, yeah. I
Got
went
in
to
the
a
pods?
BattleTech Center when I was very young, and I
Easy with the young.
Yeah.
Seriously. Rob's right next to you now.
Yeah. So that's my experience with it, like my history with it. So fairly young age.
Yeah. Yeah, how about you?
MechWarrior Online.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay, cool. And I played a little BattleTech 2, actually, every Friday night on Hyper RPG / Death from Above. All right. Let's move into some more. So can you name a game or maybe a movie where you were particularly impressed with the soundtracks? Either one of you.
The music or just all
Yeah,
audio?
the music. And the sound, either way.
Oh, I could say for me, I mean, there's so many games these days that the audio bar has been raised so high. The two ones that pop to mind are the Uncharted series, Uncharted 4. The audio in there it just blows my mind what they were able to do with that game.
Charts.
It was off the charts. It was Uncharted.
I made a dad joke. Yeah, it sucked. Keep going.
And just the stuff they did with the sound design and also the score was just incredible. And then things like smaller games like the Banner Saga series, I think, have really interesting audio. Witcher 3 was incredible in terms of what they were able to accomplish with audio.
Those are two great developers.
And music. Yeah, gosh. I mean, I wish I could look at their Wise project and see how complicated that thing was.
I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and the sound was over the top. And cool. That's a bombastic movie.
Yeah,
that was pretty out of control. Anything for you?
Well, I got to work on Destiny, so I got to kind of see under the hood.
Oh,
and even though I worked on basically VO on that, I'll tell you the weapon sounds in that game are wonderful. I mean, they're just the layers and the finesse and the feeling of it. It makes you feel good when you shoot those weapons, and then the impacts and the explosions. All
right.
The way they mix that game, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Robin and I have been working on a lot, is the feel of mech combat specifically. And
which is, may I talk about that?
Please. That's what this is for.
Well, it's kind of interesting, the mix of BattleTech, because I asked this going in from the very beginning. Where is the listener? How far away are we? And I was trying to get them to give me some actual distances. How far out are we, and how close are we going to get? And that kind of was a moving target for a while, because no, that's too far, no, that's too close. We've sort of settled on something now. But, you know, when you're up there where the birds would fly, you're not really going to hear what you want to hear of a battlefield. So in a sense, we're kind of cheating the sound.
Yes,
so that we're really as far away as we can get, which is a long ways. It's really only going to sound like you're about 100 yards away. That's as far as it's going to get.
Because that's what's fun.
So it still has impact, and it's still, you can hear all the details. So that's been kind of an interesting.
And also, Rob's put everything obviously maybe not obvious to you, into 3D space. So the closer you are to a weapon fire, the louder it is, and of course, as the camera pulls back. But we also, as Rob was saying, we cheat those distances for fun. If like if you go see the Fast and the Furious, cars don't actually sound exactly like, but it is fun.
Well,
throaty.
This is real. You just kind of very quickly get used to that distance sounds like this, so it's okay. And we're not just changing the distance. We're rolling off the top too, so that it gets more muffled as it pulls out.
Yeah,
and the ambience comes in. You hear the
wind. For example,
I
was playing last night, and when your mech walks through the water, you expect to hear water splashes, and when you're close, you can. When you're zoomed all the way out, you don't. I'm like, I want to hear water splashes, even though, because you can see the little visual effect, and it's like, it sounds like a bug when it's missing, but you have to stop with logic sometimes. It's like, why can this battle mech only shoot the distance of a football field? Well, because fun.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, keep going. Let's do one for young John over there. Hey, here's one for you that you and I just talked about the other day. This person says, sorry, I don't have anybody's name here. I absolutely adore it when a game uses the human voice, like Skyrim or Halo. Any chance we'll hear something like that in BattleTech 2017?
Yes. So we recorded with a 24-piece choir in Latvia for BattleTech, and then we're also in the process of doing some recordings with a local soloist as well, and going to pepper that throughout the score as much as we can.
It's cool.
And the way I found out about this is John said, hey, can I get some more money for this soloist? And I listened to the clip you sent, and I don't know if you heard this.
I didn't know that you listened to it.
Oh, actually. Of course I listened to it, because McCain has to come to me for the money, right? And I just said, this is a no-brainer.
Oh, cool.
That was my response. This is a no-brainer.
That's what I thought, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that good question. Again, those questions are on BattleTechGame.com. That's where we got them from before we take your live later on. Hey, Rob, what does a sound designer actually do?
Well, I'll tell you what they don't do. They don't just go to some sound library, pick a sound out and throw it into a game. The standard of sound design is to try to come up with something that is unique. Even if you take it from a library, you're going to change it in some way or layer it with something else. And then I've got what's called middleware, which is a technical piece of software where I can randomize things and filter things and layer things in lots of different ways that the game doesn't have to worry about. The middleware does all that controlling, and it's got a nice interface for non-programmer people like myself. So they're technically responsible for all the sound in the game that's not music. That's what a sound designer does. Typically that's separated, not VO, but in this case I'm doing the voiceover producing as well, you and I. And so it's everything that's not music.
That's simple. We'll give you another one too. Let's see. What's been the most difficult sound that you've created for BattleTech so far?
Oh, man.
What's given you a hard time?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Pass. I'm going to think about that.
Very well, no problem. John, back to you. Look, I have this all laid out so neatly. You can pass when I say so. That's the best part about this gig.
You only get 3. I've used 1 now.
Okay.
What piece of music in the game is your favorite? Without spoilers.
That's a good question. I would say that my favorite pieces are particular to the character Lady Arano, and I think that's all I can say about that. But a lot of solo work that I really liked a lot that we recorded earlier last year.
Actually, speaking of Lady Arano, she has an interesting background, sort of a Hawaiian Maori background. And one of the questions later on in this is, how did that background, or did that background actually inspire the theme that you created for her?
It inspired me a lot. I mean, because one of the first things that I was shown about her as a character was concept art, and then the concept art with that have these kind of references that are either existing pieces of art or pictures, and it just really kind of went deep into certain aspects of her cultural history that instantly, for me as a composer, are like, okay, this is like directing me down a path.
Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting thing as a game developer and as a writer of video games. You know, there's always this thing, and there's a push-pull with me and Andrew, our lead writer, on all the games that we make. It's like, how much detail for these characters? How much background do you actually go into? How much of this is wasted, and it'll never show up on screen, right? And it's an interesting thing, because when you do, and this is the same thing when I was in acting school too, when you actually do what we call the homework of that character and you understand these things, then there are tools to hand to you, even if we don't say exactly why this theme is there or whatever. It's motivated by something, and that's a place to start instead of, well, I thought she was pretty, so I made a pretty music.
Right, and I think that those sort of backstories, they can always kind of change in certain subtle ways, and but there's just kind of this overarching theme to each character that is involved in like their backstory and what references we have for them, and that doesn't seem to change.
Well,
okay,
are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Go ahead. The most difficult thing.
Well, they're all difficult in a sense because I want to get them right and I want to make them new, so I'm always digging deeper than just doing the obvious thing.
Right.
But right now we're working on the rotary cannons.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's been really clear from the beginning, and I've been pursuing that the A10 Warthog gun is really scary. And that's a good sound to hear. So it and kind of a futuristic machine gun sound melded together, and that's a scary sound coming out of there. But recently, like within days, we've had to come up with ways to make that gun spray as many pieces of ammo at the landscape so that we hear them all hit.
Right.
Well, in order to do that, we had to create individual shots on the front end. And I realized that the AC-20 rotary is only shooting 20 rounds at a time. Well, that AC-10 Warthog thing is shooting thousands, right? And so it's a little incongruous to hear that zzz thing when it only goes ba-da-da-da-da-da. So I'm rethinking it right now and wondering whether I shouldn't pull that sound out, which could be a disappointment, so I've got to see how it sounds. But right now, it doesn't seem to match.
So there's an iterative nature to what we do, obviously. You put it in, you play it, you make tweaks, you play it. But also, what Rob was alluding to is the idea, what we do is we don't just make this one sound effect, and when you play weapon, you play this sound effect. Instead, what happens is there's often 3 sound effects for every weapon fire. For example, there's the firing of the weapon, the travel of the weapon, and then the hit of that distinct weapon. So each weapon sounds very distinct.
And the echo of the weapon off the hills afterwards.
So, and then what happens is, Rob, in this case for the rotary cannon, remember the reason why we have these rather than just the one AC-20 shell, which we also have, is so that you can, during the mercenary campaign, buy different weapons from different manufacturers that have some unique gameplay to them, a little bit push-pull, things like the rotary cannon as an example, and so we have to sort of invent that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the single shot AC-20 and AC-10 are
Badoom!
pretty cool right now.
Badoom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. So I think for the beta,
Yeah.
I could say that we're probably going to have that A10 Warthog sound probably in there.
Okay.
We'll probably go with that, but I'm rethinking it, so
Yeah.
it may
Well, the
morph
good news
later.
is it's a fairly low-risk change,
Right.
too. So, okay, good. I wonder where that was on here, but okay. Back to young John.
Young John.
Well, let's face it.
I've got gray hair, guys. You see that?
Is that right? Yeah. By the way, that's kind of a Reed Richards look. Very attractive, right? Can
It's
you stretch
fake.
all the way? Oh, is that right?
No.
Just spray it on just for the purposes of a live stream? Hey, will the soundtrack be available in lossless formats at some point?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you actually sell the Shadowrun soundtracks real fast. Hop that shit, baby. Tell them where to find that.
Yeah, I sell all my soundtracks on my Bandcamp. So that's John Everest,
The Jon for John.
JONEVERIST .bandcamp.com. So you have the Shadowrun stuff, Necropolis, a few other stuff on there.
All right. While we're talking, you and I, alone, just the two of us. You know, we're traveling a wide swath of space to many different planets. The music that you make, is that planet-based, right? Are there different tunes for, I won't say the names of the planets right now, right? Are there different tunes for the planets or noble houses, or how are you doing that?
The short answer is yes. So for the skirmish sort of side of the game, we have things called moods, and so they're kind of planet-based, but they're more focused on what's the general tone and mood of the map itself.
You know, biomes, right? Is it frozen
Yeah.
tundra? Is it badlands? Stuff
Right.
like that.
Like I think you can be in a frozen tundra, but it could be a beautiful day outside. So maybe playing the darker, more dissonant music that we play at night isn't as appropriate in that case. And then for the single player stuff, that's just curated throughout. So every single time we're going to have kind of a more story-driven, curated music selection for the big missions, for the missions that are kind of core to the storytelling.
Makes sense to me. Oh, back to your page there,
Yes.
Gramps.
That actually works.
Yeah, it does work. Yeah, it's nice. Let's see. Tell us about sounds for damage mechs. If a knee actuator takes a hit, how does the mech screech when it walks? How are we doing that?
We've sort of decided that the mechs travel basically the same. Their sounds of bending and moving and stepping are all going to be what they are. The engine sounds are going to reflect their damage state, so that the engines and the balance of what's in them, anything that's a gyro, anything that's spinning will be out of kilter and start to give off sounds. So an engine can deteriorate with the amount of damage. Plus, we've got the different, it's okay to give away the damage states of
Yeah, I think that's
impacts.
fine. Yeah,
So, you blow armor off, and that's got a sort of an effect and a sound that happens with the impact.
right.
And then maybe the next shot goes internal.
Right.
That's going to create another sound, but that's not so much locked to the mech moving as it is to it getting struck by whatever it struck, and then critical, where things start coming apart inside, or eventually limbs fall off, and that's pretty big sound. But
Right.
you pretty much know it.
And ammo explosions too. It's a
Yeah, you
separate
pretty
one.
much know that at the point of impact.
Right.
Then when the mech needs to move, it's restricted in its movement because it's got damage. So it will either move awkwardly or whatever, but I'm not really changing the bending sounds or the
Right.
footsteps.
Now, what'll happen also, to add to that, is when a mech gets its arm blown off, for example, and you get in close, you could hear the zzz, zzz, zzz,
And you can see it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
you can see
electrical
little sparky-
damage, there's sparks flying out, there's fire,
Right. But yeah,
and all of that has sound.
Rob and Will Avery and I, Will Avery's our visual effects artist, so we've worked on kind of the simulation aspect of mech damage, trying to make it seem like there's a real logic to why these effects play both audio and sound, and when they do, and what they're trying to simulate.
And in game development speak, since the game knows what the damage state is of anything, why can't we illustrate that in a way that's better than just a pop-up that says, you blew its arm off,
Yeah,
blow the arm off, put
that's
a lot of
kind of used to it in prototype phase.
smoke
That's what
and
it
fire,
did.
and now there's sparks and smoke
Yeah.
and stuff coming out of it, and that's good games.
Yeah. All right. So if you're just joining us, we're with Rob and John, sound and music for BattleTech, and we're taking your questions from BattleTechGame.com that have been put up there over the course of the last week. And then for the final maybe 15 or so minutes once we run this course, I'll take your questions live from chat. Back to John, who's on this page. When I say this page, what I mean is this page. Here's a good question for you, John. Will the music change as the intensity or the pace of the mission changes?
Yeah, and I think especially in story-driven missions, there's a lot of beats that we'll need to match.
And by beats, we mean story beats. It's like, oh, there's a change of fortune in there, or we've introduced a new character or something.
Right. Yeah, so he's kind of approaching it in two different ways. There's a more skirmish side, or the side where you're kind of playing generated either missions or playing against each other. That's more of like a flow of, you start out with kind of an ambient sort of track that can sometimes fade out into maybe nothing or maybe just a little loop, and then as combat is started or you spot somebody, we sort of go into a tense state and then all the way up into combat, and still playing around with the idea of if we can maybe do more of that during combat. Like, let's say some sort of stinger or something happens when you lose a mech, or you're getting close to wiping out.
But that's not in yet.
No, that's not in yet. We kind
So you won't see that in the beta, too, because it's just too late in the beta cycle. I mean, we're really narrowing in on the beta, and we're not adding anything to the beta. We're just bug fixing, cleaning it up for you, so you'll get bugs, no question. You'll just get stuff maybe we didn't find, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of that too is we want more time to be able to play the game ourselves and see like what actually makes the most, what informs the gameplay the best way, and it's just going to take time for us to see what that is.
Well,
go ahead.
And then interactive music has always been tricky because, different from a movie, it's never the same twice. You never know what the player is going to choose or what the outcome is going to be. So in a sense, it's always going to be reactive. Mm-hmm. But the trick is to make it sound like it's not reactive, like it happened when it was supposed to happen.
Right.
All right, here's one for you that you'll enjoy. Are there Lance member death sounds in the game, and are they brutal enough for us to actually feel their suffering?
Are we talking about voice?
Yes.
The
pilot
pilots?
VOs.
The pilot
we have
VOs?
death screams.
Boy, do we.
We almost broke the microphones on that one.
Well, it's always funny because in the script that Mitch made, he does all the pilot lines, and there's lots of them, hundreds of them. We've got the death scream about halfway through the recording session, and every actor comes in, we get to that, we say, okay, we're going to save that for the end.
Yeah.
And they look at it like, oh my gosh, and we just move on. And then we get to the end, and they go, we say, okay, death scream,
And then we make them step back from the microphone like 3 steps, actually into your closet to be specific.
Right.
You have to stand in the closet to be far enough away from the
And we don't need a lot. It just needs to sound like you're dying. And then we cut them off with an awful screech and static, and because the mech just goes up. And I think my direction to them is, imagine that the windshield is turning to molten flame that comes at you, and
They seem to be able to internalize that pretty well.
Yeah.
What about environmental sounds, Rob? Trees, rivers, that kind of thing?
We're going to get to that, but so far the maps are pretty plain. They're pretty much laid out to serve the battles and the skirmishes that we're trying to have. But there's lots of on-the-map sounds that are going to come up, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, and that's important for beta. You'll see what we're really going for with beta is connectivity and balance and just the raw gameplay of that thing, and it does not represent the final game in anything other than how combat works. And so
how does it feel?
How does combat feel? And then over the course of time, we layer in things, we polish things, and have little things that occur that are very, very unimportant for this stage of development. And you just, gee, it sure would be nice if, I don't know, birds flew out of a tree as you're walking by.
I have a story.
But we're not doing that now. Why are we not doing that? Because we should be spending time on gameplay.
I have a story. There's a trick that I learned at other companies that everybody would know, big ones. And this is their trick, that when they're having trouble getting the footstep sound right late in development, they replace the footstep sound with a ringing bell. And now everybody in the whole company is bugging the audio because it's going ding, 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 ding.
Right.
Well, that's wrong, fix that. And there's bugs being written all over the place. Well, what I did was I wasn't sure that the engine sounds were working correctly. So I put a mockingbird sound on it. Do you remember that? It was about a week long. We had mockingbirds in the game, and I couldn't believe how cool it sounded. It's like, this looks like birds would be here, and every time a mech would move, tweet, 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 tweet. It's like, maybe we should put birds.
Or, get a different sound designer or something like that. But that also reminds me of one other thing, and I may have mentioned this on a previous live stream talking about art. One of the things that Jordan and I used to do, especially at Microsoft, was we have what's called the blue dot. And whenever you're showing a piece of art to somebody, especially who's a non-artist, you put a little blue dot somewhere on there. And as they go to critique, because they're always trying to find something to critique so that they can feel good about themselves and so that they've added value in some way. And they go, hey, what's that blue dot there? Oh man, you're right. And then you remove the blue dot and it's approved, right? So with audio sometimes, what we do is, and I did this on a previous game at another company, although Robin and I have talked about it, is, like, oh, I'm not really happy with this sound. So you turn up the volume a little bit, and all of a sudden the sound is great. It's a great sound. And it was just, you just have to turn it up a little bit.
Sometimes that's the fix.
Oh yeah, it is. Absolutely. Let's see how we're doing on time. 12:37. We'll go to about 12:45 with y'all, and then I'm just going to go nuts on here and try and do a speed run of questions. But I'll have to put on my glasses for that. Let's see. Back to John, right? We are on, John. All right. How does scoring a game like BattleTech different from scoring a game like Shadowrun Hong Kong?
It's pretty similar. I mean, in terms of the approach, it's using art and story and stuff to drive the process. But I'd say the biggest difference is that with Shadowrun Hong Kong, I did it all digitally, so it's all composed. We call it in the box, or in my studio at home, using just digital instruments and analog synths and stuff. With BattleTech, it's just a whole another ball game with having to first, prep the scores, create mock-ups, schedule the sessions, make sure you're kind of doing everything.
You got to become a producer for yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's kind of becomes a whole other part of the job that didn't exist before.
Fly to Europe.
Right, fly to Europe, to a Eastern European country, and try to direct a bunch of 65 Eastern Europeans to play music that you wrote.
Did they speak English?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
where were you? Prague, or where were you?
We're in Budapest.
Budapest.
Yeah, and so working with a great kind of middle man there. Dynamedian is a pretty well known kind of handler for recording in Europe, recorded in Germany and recorded in Budapest also. But it's a lot of people. It's I think there's probably in total 150 people just working on getting the music that I've written into the recorded state, and then that actually then gets back to me, and then I have to take those recordings and combine them with the digital stuff. Edit them all together, make sure that they make sense still. And
it sounds nerve-wracking, John.
Yeah.
Did you hold the baton? Were you John Williams out there?
No, and for this one I didn't conduct it, because you kind of want to be in the recording control room.
Yeah.
So you can kind of hear the mistakes rather than
be in it.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you had to be like sweating out the crack of your ass during.
Well, you know, I'm glad that we recorded it early.
Yeah.
If we were under more of I think a tight schedule, it would have been a little more crazy. But since we got it done late last year, most of the live recording stuff, I've had some breathing room. So
that's good. Which is weird because I've actually never given you breathing room before.
yeah.
So that's a new experience
part
for
of
both
that
of
starting
us.
early thing.
Yeah. It turns out part of what comes with gray is actually experience, maybe.
Yeah.
That would be good. And as I explain to my kids and anybody who will listen, experience is a thing you get immediately after you screw up.
Well, you want your hair gray, not on fire.
Yeah, well, I've had
done that.
both, as you can tell from my hairline. Let's see. Got that. Let's see. We also talked about weapons from different manufacturers have different. That's what the rotary cannon.
Yeah, that's coming.
Okay, PPC. We did talk about that before. So for PPC, there's the ball of lightning, there's the Zorchi sort of thing, and that's a follow-up question. But so how did you come up with the PPC sound itself? It's very distinct.
Well, and I've
BattleTech
got to compliment somebody because when I was reading the forum questions, I actually got an idea on an improvement I want to make to
nice.
Because the question is, in the past, it's been an all-electrical thing,
right.
or it's been a big whompy kind of a thing. And I'm reading that thinking, electrical whomp, that's basically what I made.
Which, by the way, is our new band. All three of us.
Electrical whomp.
Electrical 1, 2, 3, 4!
Yeah.
Right.
But right now, it's a satisfying sound, especially since I figured out how to get the impact sound to work. Turns out, all these weapons travel in the 3D space, and pretty much the specifications of what these weapons are really supposed to be in the real world. Yeah. PPC is an instantaneous thing. And so I wasn't hearing the impact because it's happening at the same time as the shot.
That's a bug.
So I delayed it in WISE, not in the game. So the numbers are still the same. I'm talking 50 milliseconds, not very much. That little bit of separation and bam, you're hitting the other side.
It's just like when you're taking a shower and it's too cold versus too hot. And seriously, you just, there it is.
And there's the satisfaction, yes. Okay. And that's the last we want to hear about you in the shower. Okay.
Not the kind of image. Actually more. That's an entire live stream.
So the idea that I got was that just in the language of the question was that the sound of a lightning strike, the clap sound, I think is going to give it enough of a crack sound that I think that's going to be the finishing layer that I'm going to put on.
That'll be interesting. So what you hear in the beta will be a draft of the sound.
I may get it in for the beta. I may go home today and do it.
Talk to your buddy Klemecki, the producer, about whether it can get in. That's between y'all. My name's Paul. All right. So far, so good. Let's see. Just a couple more here. Hey, John. You've been doing these behind the music, like little video hoo-has. When's the next one?
I've been swamped working on the beta, but I'm going to try to start.
That's a recurring theme, by the way. We're all swamped work. Do you see these bags?
Yeah. And I'm planning on. I've got one kind of in progress right now. It's a little more in depth, which is why it's taking longer. So it'll be in the next few weeks.
Well, that'll be awesome. In depth, I like it.
Are we going to see your face?
You might not see my. This is very rare. I usually don't show my face in public.
Yeah.
So,
it's working out for you.
We'll maybe see a little bit of my face, but
we make you look good.
It's your moneymaker.
Right.
Come on.
Let's see. There's the big question, I think, from a sound effects point of view is: will we have some sort of Easter egg where we can turn on Tyler doing his own Foley for all of these? Like for the PPC, he goes Zorch.
See, I think that is an excellent DLC where we replace all the weapon
we make
sounds.
People pay for it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not happening.
If there's money coming in for that, we'd be willing to do it. I guess.
I believe that's an Easter egg, if anything.
Right, we'll see.
I guarantee that we can get Tyler's time for that. That's a motivated little guy. He would love to yell Zorch into a microphone.
We got a little audio Easter egg into
into
Necropolis right at the end there. That I don't know if anybody's found yet, but
I will give you a no prize if you do find it. Couple more questions, sound related, that I thought I'd take myself real fast. This is a really great question, and I'm sure it's something that comes up for you guys all the time when you're thinking about it. If I'm deaf and playing PvP, one-on-one to one-on-one multiplayer, will I be at a disadvantage? In other words, are there solely audio cues? Right, and if I don't hear them, I'm screwed. And so I'd like to give you that answer because, you know, this is something very important to me. So the what we've tried to do very much so is have the physical interface for the game, the visual interface on screen, give you all the information you need. What the voiceovers and the sound effects do is give you cues, right, and reinforce things that are on screen. But there should be some sort of message on screen for anything that's truly important. You'll hear a pilot say, "Oh, I'm hit in the meat," but it'll also say up there, you know, pilot injured, right? That kind of thing. So we don't believe so.
And it goes to your style of play. Some
Yeah.
people are going to be more visual. Some people are going to take the
Yeah.
audio cues. They're both there.
And
So
let's
it
face
even
it, some
goes to
people are
the
going to
extremes.
turn down the pilot VOs, you know.
Because somebody decided that would be a choice for the player.
Well, I think that wasn't me. Anyway, so there's that one. And then a follow-up question, similar thing. Will there be subtitles in the game? And the answer is certainly for our localized versions in other countries. We will absolutely be doing subtitles. I just want to tell you how they work in advance. Basically, anytime there is a story voiceover, there will be a subtitle for it. If there are story messages in-game, there will be text for that as well. Just like you saw in our Gen Con Super pre-alpha video, when your XO Darius comes on to give you information, you'll actually see his text. What you will not get, what we're not going to be able to localize, are the individual pilot voices saying, "Oh, I'm taking shrapnel," or whatever. That's just too much. The scope of that is too much, and they would be flashing so much on screen because there's actually a fair amount of chatter in the game. We elected not to do that.
But localization.
But we will actually translate those pilot voices into your local language.
Right.
Okay, so we don't need subtitles there because you really want to hear your mech warriors saying, you know, in Spanish what you're hearing, right? But
Curse
with an
you,
Irish,
Red Baron,
but in an
whatever,
Irish
yeah,
accent,
okay.
in Spanish with a Spanish. I think that's great. That sounds like a lot of fun. All right. That's it for y'all. Don't leave or anything. I'm going to take some questions from the audience right now, and you never know, there might be follow-ups for you. Again, thanks very much for putting your questions on BattleTechGame.com. We enjoy doing these on the second Wednesday of every month, and we look forward to you seeing that gameplay video that's coming out and hearing all of your commentary. All right, here we go. Please, as you're doing this, put the word question before your question in all caps so I can find it easily. John, your work is awesome according to Commander Dunsale. Love your album, sir. However, this question is for Rob. Do you have your sticks with you in the studio?
I do. Not in this studio, but in my studio.
Can you give us a quick little drum solo real fast?
There it is.
Wow, nice. And you chose another instrument, too. All right, thank you for that question. Please, no more questions
Somebody
like that.
knows I play drums? Yeah.
Oh,
I said I did.
John, analog synth? You going to use those?
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I've got several, but the ones that I really am using a lot, you'll hear some of it in the beta. I use a Prophet 12, which is my baby, and then I also have a make noise modular synthesis kind of Eurorack that I
Eurorack.
Yeah, that I.
That was my character in Shadowrun Returns. What? Eurorack. No, I'm just kidding. It's my Street Samurai. Please.
And so I use that a lot. That's going to play a bigger part as the story kind of comes together.
All right. One question here is, what day will that gameplay video I talked about be released, and how confident is Mitch in victory? All right. First of all, it will be released this week, and we'll put it in a Kickstarter update. You will not be able to miss it. We'll also put it on BattleTechGame.com forums in one of our announcements. And how confident is Mitch in victory? So McCain is very close to the top of the leaderboard, and I am at the bottom. I am the in-house leaderboard. Yeah, the in-house leaderboard, and I am the rock bottom of the leaderboard. So you tell me what my confidence is.
But the interesting thing in this little tournament is that everyone must play you.
Yes, that is a requirement for winning the cup, the BattleTech Cup, which is actually... It looks a lot like the Dancing with the Stars mirror ball. It's just as classy. Let's see. How much budget goes to sound? Rough percentage. How much of that goes to music? Also, Indrasari loves your hair, Rob, by the way. That's a glorious thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Business in front and party in the back. So how much of the budget goes to sound? I guess that's a question for me.
Isn't it like
100%?
No.
It's 100%. All $3.25 million that you guys, after the Kickstarter rewards, went to music. I have no idea what the percentage is. It's
I'm trying to do
lowish.
the math.
You know, it's lowish. Well, you can't do the math because you only know what the Kickstarter number was,
Well,
not
that's-
how much Harebrained Schemes put
right,
in.
Going off of that,
Yeah.
it's like 0.2%.
I don't know. What did I warn you guys before? Don't answer any questions you don't know the answers to. All right, let's see what else we got. I thought this question said, how do you make babies, but I read it wrong. What else? I understand all the work involved in producing excellent audio. However, will savvy players be able to modify the audio files to their own liking with the right software? That's actually not a question for either of these two guys. That's a question for our engineering team. As a general statement, what I will say is, with the exception of PvP matches, which will obviously be authenticated, we're not taking a lot of effort to hide stuff from you. Okay, so if you root around and you're savvy, we'll see what you can do.
Whoa.
Question, will Tyler also make a Mockingbird sound for the engine? I'm just going to take that as a yes and put it on his goals for the year list for me. Let's see. Can we get an international lance? So the way it works in the game, you're going to have mech warriors with different pilot images and different voices that Rob and I are recording, and you can rename them and you can mix or match which voice goes with which character image. And some of those voices, there's one who's Korean, there's one who is let's see, Irish. Yep. There's one who's
British.
Russian, British. You know, so can you, and there's more coming. So can you make an international lance? Yes, already. In the beta you can.
Yes, you can.
Let's see, what else? Will you have guitar-heavy mission intro music?
There's some guitar in the score, but...
we're not doing heavy metal.
Not heavy metal guitar, no.
No. You can play MechWarrior 4 for that one. TJ, the producer of that one, he was heavily into the metal. Well, that guy was a metal dude. He was completely metal. I love that guy. He was a great guy. He still is. He just doesn't. We don't work together anymore. Is it true they don't have a death screen for Talon because the man cannot die? Talon's not in the game yet, so we'll see what happens. Can we make a forum poll for the mech selections in Mitch versus Mike? No. Next question. The reason is very simple. We want to show off what we want to show off. Yeah. And I don't really do much poll stuff or do what anybody else tells me. That's why I have my own company. It's the best thing ever. Question from Namsera. John, love your music. What instrument do you play or enjoy the most?
I play a little bit of piano and guitar, and I grew up playing the drums. I'm not like good at any of them, but it gets me through the day.
I'm not like good.
I'm not, like good.
I use the piano the most.
I didn't realize you were a vowel too. Yeah, the question was also they noticed a fair amount of use of cello in your music.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering kind of if you were a cello dude.
I love the cello.
Just love the cello.
We recorded with a brilliant cellist. Her name's Erika Kadi in Budapest. She did some really cool stuff. You'll hear some of that in the beta.
John, how often do you play and record the instruments yourself versus write and hire musicians to play
Good
them?
question.
The only stuff I play myself is guitar, piano, and some percussion stuff. So I've got like...
So only. That's 3 times more than I play.
Well, yeah.
Actually, technically 3 times.
Nothing
0
virtuosic. Anything that requires a lot of skill, I will hire somebody to do.
And virtuosic is actually a word. Could you look that up, please? We're on the internet right now. Let's see. Either one of you guys, maybe you, Rob, have you met any high-profile people who play your games? Anybody famous play your stuff? Besides Dinklage, of course, playing Destiny, because I know he's a huge player.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of
No?
famous people so I don't have a lot of them who have come up to me and
Anybody say
said, played
anything
your
to you,
game.
Rob? John?
I think Tom Cruise played Shadowrun Hong Kong. I'm not 100%.
Come on!
No, I have no idea.
I will say this, and this is truly cool. Both Steven Spielberg and the late Robin Williams, Avashalom, they were both BattleTech fans.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And I met Spielberg at E3 one time. And also Richard Hatch. The late Richard Hatch also played Mech Commander 2.
Wow.
Which is kind of goofy. But yeah, Spielberg and Robin Williams. Spielberg was really interested in the Crimson Skies movie for a long time.
Interesting.
That's a long story.
Crimson Skies, what a great game.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And a good score.
Good score, Stan Lepard.
Let's see. We are almost out of time. Is it possible for savvy players to modify audio files from ourselves? Answer that question. The answer is, yeah, it could be. Depends on how savvy you are and how sloppy we are at hiding stuff from you. And by sloppy, I mean, intentionally careless. And yes, a BattleTech movie confirmed. Thank you. You support NVIDIA Surround or triple screen resolutions?
The game, audio-wise, will support 5.1, and I'll be mixing it for 5.1, but the primary fold-down is going to be to stereo.
Yeah, well, it's got to. It's for your headphones, right?
Yeah.
It's what
Yeah,
it is.
I mean,
No
if you're
offense,
sitting at a
man.
computer that's got left and right and a subwoofer,
Yeah.
that's a 2.1,
Right.
it'll fold down to that really, really
Oh,
well.
I know that because I did it last night from home.
Yeah.
And my kid's like, I'm trying to do my homework.
But-
I'm like, me too.
But we've got a 5.1 in this room,
Right.
and we listen to it, and the sounds are
Yeah.
3D all the way around
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
It'll mix for 5.1. I don't know about the visual.
Question from Field Medic 4077 MASH. Will there be female mech pilots? Absolutely. Roughly half the mech pilots will be women.
Yep.
Whoops. Will there be 3D editable portraits in full release, not in beta? TBD. Welcome to Agile Game Development, kids. And what that means is you make the game and then you realize, oh, I have to make it better, and then you might run out of time to do something else. And we're doing a full review of all of our features in the game. But the truth is, the way this works is until the beta is out, we are not sure how much work actually remains. We know how much we plan.
Yep.
Now the question is, how much feedback do we get that requires action? Not can we take action, but should we take action and must we take action? And then how much time and money do we have left to make the game? And then you start making trade-offs. And that's just the nature of the business.
Well,
and
playing the beta is not just for fun; it's work. We
hell
need
yeah.
the feedback.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Tell us what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, mostly the connectivity and game balance is going to be the things. All right, how long is a usual recording session for each of you? So, John, what do you think of a recording session? How'd that go?
For me, we did 1 day in Germany, a full day, so it's usually 8 or 9 hour day, and then 2 full days in Budapest. So that covers about I would say 60 minutes between 45 and 60 minutes of live music.
Mm-hmm. And what about you?
It usually takes us 2 hours to get a pilot,
Yeah.
one pilot character done.
Right.
And we might have a single actor do more than one character.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for making sound effects, I can take as long as an hour.
It feels like
to,
years
to
to
put
me.
together a whole lot of different layers to make say a whole weapon, or it could take me 10 minutes to grab a thing and put it in the middleware, and the middleware will change it
And you
on
have to
the
connect
fly.
up each mech, too.
Yeah, yeah, but
It's kind of a time-consuming gig, but luckily they both work at home, which is
well,
good.
it's taken this many months to get this far.
Yeah, that's the way it works. All right, just a couple more questions because we're running out of time. It's lightning round time. Official Discord channel for PvP and feedback. That will be in a Kickstarter update explaining how we're going to get feedback from you, but I will tip our hand in saying there will be built into the beta will be a questionnaire survey for you. That'll help us quite a bit, because then we can take your feedback and really sort it and really manipulate that information. So that's an important thing. Is there a different sound for impacts and different environmental objects?
Oh, absolutely.
Trees?
Oh, yeah. There's a whole very long list, 25, 30 different kind of surface types that I will mix in certain ways that I apply to the bottom of the feet of the mechs, that I apply to every impact from every weapon, so that if it hits dirt, sounds one way, metal's a different thing, water's another thing.
Yeah.
And the game knows all those things and changes them on the fly. It's
even what surface the mech is walking across.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely all impacts, everything that interfaces with the world in the game changes according to its texture.
All right, we have come to the end of our hour for the BattleTech developer live stream here at Harebrained Scheme Studios in beautiful, actually sunny
not
Seattle.
filtered.
No, it's
Sun
not bad.
came out.
Not bad. Rob, our sound designer, John, our music composer, I got that right, and me, your host, Mitch. Thanks very much. We really look forward to putting out this video for you and give you something really to talk about. So thanks very much for joining us. Peace.